Good afternoon and welcome to Lunchtime Series with me, Kevin Britz, proudly powered by leadershipbydesign.co, leading the change and leading the charge with insights, information, and ultimately effective results. Joining me in today's marketing and leadership segment, marketing communications expert, Craig Pagely. How are you doing, Craig?
Kevin, I'm well, thank you. Yeah, very, very busy. Good manic start to the year, which is really great. It is depriving me of sleep at times, but yeah. But I'm here. Hey, just pushing on. And your side?
Also, getting through a lot and waiting for people to get on with business. I'm still waiting for answers from quite a few clients, actually. So I think January is a lot of people have been dragging their feet. So I'm kind of going, okay.
Yeah.
So in between that, I've done a lot of interviews, more finding really interesting guests for the Lunchtime series, but also, creating a lot of content. So which is just helping add more value to all the programs that we're doing, and what's to come. So yes, excited for the new year.
No, fantastic, and content. It really is. That's what we got to just remain focused on doing. This entire year is just bundling that content, getting great pieces out there, and just feeding the hungry minds.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Craig, so for today's conversation, tell us what we are going to be chatting about.
Yeah, Kevin, the recent GWI report that looks at the trends that we're actually uncovering in their Joining the Dots platform report, and they produce, or at least publish, an annual customer research report that looks at some really interesting tidbits around the industry, and they package it around a couple of key tabs: the platform itself, the data behind the findings, the solutions that they actually provide, and then they go into some of the areas of focus that they've covered in the report. And this particular year, there are a couple of key themes that have come up. These being the likes of trust in the news, the tensions that the world's experiencing with AI, social boomers, something we're really going to focus on in the conversation today. Some sports highlights, again, something that's quite interesting for me. Veganism, really interesting findings there, and gun concerns, which is very oriented towards America. We're not going to touch on that, but really the Connecting the Dots is an annual report. It's a fantastic report to read, easy to digest, and GWI just produces fantastic content on an annual basis. The key focus being consumer research and really how this can actually help brands understand who their audiences are and who the buyers are of their respective products and that. The great thing is it's a readily available report that you just dive into to find the insights to help you on your way. And the reason this report stood out for me, Kevin, is that I know it's a 2002 series, but I took some time out on last week, easing into the year to watch the 2002 mini series titled "The Murdoch's Empire of Influence," and obviously it relates to Rupert Murdoch, the media mogul, and his family, and the trials and tribulations of that family, and the direct influence and impact that man had on the world. And it really resonated with the trust in the news proposition when I was reading this report. And I thought, let's have some general conversation around these particular topics, and start with the trust in the news segment. But what's really interesting, in my architectural days, when I was still a young guy working in London in the late 80s, early 90s, I actually met Rupert Murdoch, and I was working for Fitzroy Robinson Architects, and we actually, I worked on the project to look at the concept design for News Corporation's head office for Europe, which would have been based in the London area. So interesting gentleman, feisty, but just a great mind. Yeah. So yeah, good to have met the lad. So let's pick up on the trust.
I just want to clarify. You always come up with you're full of surprises. Eh? It's name dropping and these things you've done, and I'm like, what the hell? Like,
No, Kevin, my architectural days were were really enriching in my life. And as I've said to you before, it's the experience of being an architect that's actually navigated me into this world of brand and communications. There's a direct intrinsic link to that, but also what it's done, it's given me a broader understanding of team dynamics, working in multidisciplinary environments and teams and things like that. But yeah, I definitely have had the privilege of working. Richard Rogers is another one I worked with, Philip Cox in Australia and things like that. So a fantastic experience and exposure in my life. But yeah, it's not about that. This is about looking at trust in the news and making some references to good old Rupert Murdoch. Just as a precursor here, the GWI report is predominantly European American focused, and a lot of the findings in this particular instance are from America. So whilst we're talking America, we're not talking South Africa today. Just to put it out there.
Craig, just to clarify, I was just looking at the time or the age that we are. Like this document really, it speaks about the baby boomers, and that would be, you would probably be in your 50s or older, right? And then the Gen Zers, and you would probably be in your 20s, and they literally making comparisons about like these two generations, right?
Yes, correct. And in many instances, the later 50s are the parents of the younger mid-20s as well. So there's a nice direct correlation as to what are the youngers learning from their parents and vice versa. And I think when you look at the boomers are doing more online thing, I think they're definitely picking that up from their younger kids. But interesting, one of the key trends is that Americans are generally, across the spectrum of America, losing trust in the news they read. And since Q2 2020, 24% increase in the number of Americans who are not trusting the media that they read, Kevin. And the key thing here is that the media organizations really need to prioritize a rebuilding of that public trust, not just in America. And that's also, there's some relevance to South Africa and very much this particular point. And it highlights that the transparency, accuracy, and authenticity needs to come through in news being reported and shared.
Yeah, I mean, Craig, what's interesting about that is, I'm one of those TikTok people who's often on TikTok. But what I'm noticing about news channels is certain news, especially with the war in Israel at the moment, there's a lot of news outlets that have people on the in the road and on the what do you call it on the site, on site doing reporting, and they literally are going, guys, you're not going to see this on mainstream publication. So you kind of go, oh, that's really interesting, because we kind of take it for face value. Well, this is the news. Obviously, they're going to tell us what the truth is. But when you're seeing it in context of someone who's on the ground running around the war zone, it's a very, very, very different approach to and understanding of the real problematic danger that they face.
And I liked the fact that you said what the truth is, and I think we should rephrase it to what their truth is, because most definitely the reality is each of these news empires and television stations, broadcast stations are all coming with their own points of view of the truth at that particular point in mind. And when you watch the series, you'll definitely notice the bias towards the likes of Donald Trump's and things like that. So, there is a lot to be said around their truth as opposed to the truth.
Yeah.
So the interesting here is there's a lovely little quote here by Tim Morris, who's a trends manager from GWI. It says, "Trust but verify." And that's an old proverb that was frequently used by the former US President Ronald Reagan. And it just essentially means that we really need to check the facts, even if we do trust where they come from. The sad reality is we often just don't trust many of the sources. And that is a case for a lot of these Americans today. We are finding it much harder to actually count on the media for the truth. The truth, and it definitely has a far-reaching impact here, but not just for brands and these news organizations, but definitely for society. And when you're starting to lie to society, you're starting to cover up the truths, society at large have the opportunity for backlash. But it's great that you are finding components of society to take it into their own hands through the likes of the TikToks, Kevin.
So, I mean, Craig, to a certain degree, it's quite obvious why this is, a necessity to, to verify the resources you trust. But don't you want to just from a brand perspective and from a marketing perspective, kind of just clarify that for people who are listening, to kind of go, it's imperative that, as the brand and as the people putting yourself out there, to make sure that what it is you're sharing sort of upholds the credibility of a brand, because
Yes.
someone taught me this a few years ago, and she'd already moved to America, but she followed my Facebook accounts, and we're friends.
Yes.
And I shared something about one of the political parties in South Africa, but they were making fun of the political party. So I was like, oh, well, that's really funny. And she private messaged me and said, Kevin, you've worked far too hard and far too long on the brand that you're currently in for you to destroy it with one post. Please take off the post.
That's incredible.
And I was like, because immediately you kind of go like, I say what I want to say, and like it's my bloody Facebook or whatever. And immediately but she prefaced it with, working on a brand and being responsible for what it is you post. And it immediately, like, I took it down. I was like, I didn't need to learn that lesson again.
Sure.
But I mean, it does have direct impact on how it influences your brand.
And that's really great that you share that, Kevin, because at the end of the day, the nature of what transpired there was a moderator in place for you. And was an external moderator, which was really great because there's somebody that obviously respects your brand and has been able to step in. Now, in corporate FMCG commercial brands, it's the consumers and the supporters of those brands that are often the moderators, because those are the folk who not just can help rectify the negative stance that you experienced there, and that was a glib statement and could have had consequential damage to your brand. It's a case of verifying these claims of disinformation that so many brands make. And the topic that aligns 100% with that we've spoken about quite a bit last year is false statements around sustainability and the whole concept of greenwashing and things like that. So it is up to the brands to be cognizant of the truth and validity of the message that they're putting out there, the promises around the brand performance and expectations, but at the same time to be open and leaning into any commentary and critique and criticism being fed back to the brand by the brand loyalists or those that have had a bad experience. And just, you've got to be able to lean into the feedback that comes your way and ensure that you're working with it.
But I mean, I just want to loop it back to where we left off from the trust factor, and I think that's important, right? You've got to know the sources that you can rely on, and you find that it's a valuable resource, and that you're having the right kind of information shared with you. It's a very important
factor. And Kevin, I think again that the trust factor or lack of trust could be exacerbated through the increasing use of social media, because social media, if you look at since 2021, there's been a 13% increase in social media platforms has been used for the weekly news bulletin. Okay, and the risk there is that there is in essence zero editorial oversight in that particular space, and coming with that is rumor, sensationalism, and obviously unverified information, which can spread, and it means that consumers really have to actively fact check everything that they see or hear relative to their brand, particularly in the high brand loyalty space, Kevin.
Yeah, absolutely. But I mean, what more can you unpack about this conversation about the boomers and the Gen Z?
Yes. Now the boomers is really an interesting one here, because what we're seeing around boomers is that boomers are definitely doing more and more scrolling and shopping online, and they really are becoming quite a key target for brands chasing the wallet, Kevin. And the trend here is that consumers are using a wider range of social media apps and e-commerce sites, with a 57% rise in baby boomers using TikTok since Q1 2021. And definitely they're more likely to more likely to have bought a product or service online in the last week, more likely, take note, than Gen Z. Yeah, and and because of that, obviously, baby boomers represent this incredibly big opportunity, lucrative access to market, as well as untapped opportunities for many brands here, Kevin. The interesting, again, there's always lovely quotes by participants who contribute to the report. In this instance, it's from Stephanie Harlow, who's the listen to me, the senior trends analyst. And Stephanie says that in 2016, brands were told to forget millennials and focus on Gen Z. 4 years later, they were advised to forget millennials and Gen Z to make room for the next bunch. So in the race to stay relevant, businesses are scrambling to appear, obviously, to younger generations, often neglecting the older consumers along the way. And remember, the older consumers often are retirees or those in financial stability phases in their life, and therefore got a bigger disposable income to work with. And obviously, brands therefore shouldn't neglect this particular cohort, because not only are baby boomers spending more time on social media, they are regularly buying online, and obviously their spending power really is unmatched, Kevin.
Craig, 2 points I want to sort of raise for your insights is, a while ago we had that conversation about the jobs that would be created in the next 10 years haven't been created yet. And that was before TikTok was even available, right? We had that conversation.
Correct.
So we look at people earning money from TikTok right now. Do you think that, I mean, part of that is, it's an obvious conversation to kind of go, well, we didn't anticipate that people would be using this platform and making money off it, and that would be a stream of income. But second to that, I just, from listening to this conversation today, I don't think TikTok was planned or even realized that they were building a platform for a larger audience than they anticipated, because initially this was about dancing and fun and sharing little videos with your friends, and now if you look at it now, there's baby boomers who are showing you how to use TikTok and how to use Instagram Reels, and there are people that are they have their own channels on TikTok showing you how to use TikTok.
It's fantastic. It really is. And you talk about the reality of jobs that didn't exist. Well, interestingly, TikTok is obviously a well-used platform for influencers, whether micro or large scale. And influencers derive and generate income through the use of TikTok. And what we're seeing is the boomers are moving from using social media channels to connect with their friends to actually becoming influencers in many instances. And the point that the article notes here is that while Facebook is still their long-standing favorite, the number of baby boomers who regularly use Instagram and TikTok is climbing. Their growing engagement with video-based apps is ultimately refining their approach to social media, which is becoming more about entertainment and brand engagement. So an opportunity for brands to maybe reignite the trigger around loyalty, where they may have thought that some of that loyalty has waned as you're moving through the generational cohorts, actually has a chance to re-engage and get you back up into the loyalty loop. And obviously TikTok's making some serious gains here. And what we're seeing is baby boomers outside China are using the app more. Take a note of this: fastest growing app, TikTok at 57%. Snapchat 16%, Reddit 16%, Instagram 8%, and then X, former Twitter, is still growing at 4%. But the most used apps are still Facebook, then Insta, then X, then TikTok, and then Pinterest. But why is this happening, Kevin? Well, the social media footprint, as it's expanding, boomers are becoming more enthusiastic about the commercial content. And in the USA alone, the number who say following influencers is a top reason for using the social platform, this has grown by 20% since 2021. Substantial growth. And influencers have been capturing attention on various apps too, using them to take notes, defy the ageist stereotypes, and inspire many more young adults. And you've got the likes of the lifestyle influencers like Barbara Costello, Lynn Davis, and then Jim Tan. And these are just a few of the names that have been followed by millions of followers around the world. And these are the boomers who really are shaking it up and showing the world how to use social media. The key here is the way that baby boomers are using social media is changing. Therefore, brands have to approach the needs to change and meet the expectations around baby boomers. And an example here is international, London-based. There's a company adopting this very well is Trini London, whose social first strategy is aimed at older women. And it's already yielded an online community of 90,000 people, Kevin, on the likes of Instagram. And these folk have contributed £50 million to the company's turnover, Kevin.
But what's interesting about, as you're going through it, Craig, is I've had about 3 conversations just in the last week and a half with leadership conversations or coaching conversations that they're going to be on the show, and a very common theme is how leadership needs to change, right? When you see the human behavior as we're seeing it here changing, like people anticipated that this would be a Gen Z kind of, and yes, I'm making a generalization, but the generalized assumption would be that these platforms were aimed at a certain generation and Gen Zers and millennials. And and I asked my daughter the other day, do you get any of my TikTok messages? And she said to me, no, I don't even use TikTok anymore. I was like, what do you mean you don't use TikTok anymore? And she's like, no, like we use Snapchat or we use Instagram. And I was like, so you don't use TikTok? And she's like, no, she doesn't. And I was like,
that's unreal.
It's really
unreal. Yeah, sure. What's really important in this particular comment that you make, Kevin, is that in the last decade, the digitization of baby boomers, their daily mobile usage since 2013 has increased 2.8%. And their time on social has increased 68%. So you can obviously see why this cohort really is important to brands and why businesses have to evolve their marketing strategies towards these older target audiences as well, Kevin.
And I like that it's and that could potentially mean even if you're a brand that has been targeting younger people, that it sort of it widens that market for you now, and you kind of have to be a little bit more strategic on going, okay, well, how do I speak to not only this generation, but people who are 50, 60 years old, because they're probably going to see the TikTok.
Yes, absolutely. So, talking about online use, I think it's good to segue to one of the other topics that's picked up in the report, and this is the importance of short form video, which is really changing sports, Kevin. And the key here is, what is social media doing in rewriting the sports playbook? So the story or the key trend here is that combat sports are giving consumers what they want, short form content, and they're seeing a popularity boost because of it. So what's interesting in light of the combat sports, I don't watch MMA or the cage fighting proposition much at all, but obviously South Africa had Vickers in the lightweight world title bout on Sunday morning with USA time evening, South African time mid-morning, and it's a short format game tournament. And what really is good there is it lends itself to these short format propositions around video and sport as well. And if you just look at the following, that particular event received around the world, it is just unreal. So the combat in person and the combat online is really something that is driving a lot of engagement. And here, as I say, 21% increase in combat sports since Q4 2020 in the USA alone, Kevin. And what's coming out of that is the short form video is actually drawing in new audiences, and major brands really need to lean in and get in on the action of that particular proposition. So another great tidbit from the report. Tyler Ash, who's the senior trend analyst for this particular category, notes the following. In 2015, boxing legend Floyd Mayweather Jr. and Manny Pacquiao, I can never get his surname right, are in the ring. You want to watch the fight, but it's $90, and that means eating instant noodles for a month. But today, sports fans have more options. They can watch live matches on streaming platforms like ESPN Plus and DAZN, or hop onto, take note, TikTok to catch the highlights in 1 minute or less. Big leagues, consumers want to save both time and money. Big leagues need to really be aware of this and formulate their content proposition to meet those short form permutations, Kevin. And again, we're time starved at the end of the day. So runtime is really of the essence. And if you look at the average consumer spend online every day, take notes of this. Consumers are spending 7 hours on average online each day. Obviously, that includes work on laptops and desktops, but their attention doesn't last even a fraction of that, Kevin. So short form video can definitely get your point across quickly and obviously hook people, whether it's a dance, as you mentioned earlier, the proposition of what brought TikTok really to life, whether it's dinner inspiration or that heavyweight title highlight. Scrollers really can have it all, and quickly, Kevin. And the fastest growing types of social content, obviously sports highlights growing by 19% since Q2 2022. Movie trailers, interestingly, growing by 15%. Live sports games by 13%. Viral and funny clips by 11%. Posts about products and brands, double figure growth 11%. And music videos growth by 9%, Kevin.
Yeah, I mean, and that's I think it's what I'm noticing is that how applicable this is to me, because I find a lot of content on TikTok that I follow, but I didn't know about the sports. And what's strange, even in December, my daughter and I we were kind of chilling in front of the TV. And not really doing much. And I saw that there was a live event. They were having some kind of Christmas kind of live event. And a lot of artists that she, currently listens to was performing at the live event. But I mean, it's not sort of showcased on any channel or anything. So I showed her and she's like, oh, wow. And so she jumped on TikTok and she was literally watching some of her favorite artists live, performing live in London. So
that's incredible.
It really does. There is something about that live element that they're tapping into that's really working for an audience.
To add on to that, in the USA, there about 20% of sports fans are actually stating that they would make live viewing experiences more exciting if the organizers of the events and the broadcasting events actually started adding in other layers on social media, exactly as you mentioned, your daughter was watching it on TikTok. So yeah, whilst an event is happening on social media, you could be fed behind the scenes activities, different footage from different episodes and how that ties together, but definitely utilizing the opportunity that it's a multi-screen engagement, and your daughter's watching her artists on TikTok is absolutely a proof point of that there, Kevin.
Yeah, absolutely.
Veganism. This is an interesting one. And the reason I say interesting here is veganism, as the title to the section on the report states, veganism ain't so hot anymore. And it's really about plant-based diets are diminishing in their popularity. And the article is around how to make plant-based diets tasty again. So really good play on words there, Kevin. The trend here is that interest in veganism is declining, with some seeking more flexibility in their diets. I always expected that to happen, to tell the honest truth. And the number of Europeans identifying as flexitarian is now risen by 13% year on year since last year, Kevin. And the key takeaway here is that plant-based foods, the addressable marketing is evolving. Food brands should target flexitarians and those interested in reducing their meat consumption, not just vegetarians or vegans. And that's the important point, because there's a lot of trial and moving between the different tarian statements. I've got friends who are vegan one month, next month they're not, they're back into a bit of meat, things like that, but they use it as a habitual cleansing out of the body as well. So interesting trends and behaviors that come with that there. Tom Hedges is the senior trend analyst, and his sharing around this point is that whether it was Starbucks promoting phantom frappuccinos or Snoop Dogg endorsing Beyond Meat, it seems likely every other celebrity or brand was backing vegan products in the late 2010s. Fast forward to today, and businesses have begun pulling these selections after disappointing sales, with some online personalities publicly renouncing vegan lifestyles. As the cost of grocery rises, sustainability, common motivation for eating vegan food, has also become less of a consumer priority, which means that plant-based industry could actually do with a boost here, Kevin.
Craig, I just like a side note, I'm stuck on flexitarian. Like, what is the obsession that we have to coin or label something so desperately? Like, we've got enough Aryan words, and trying to box people into just eat what the hell you want. Like, why do we need a name for it?
Yeah, I think
it is interesting. Now a name for it.
Incredibly obsessed around categorizing different behaviors, because then you can try and funnel efforts into pushing messaging into that cohort and grouping to pull you back into swinging you into another area of spend. It's the marketers really, more than anything, I think. Well, I know. The reality around the flexitarian proposition is that people just don't want to feel boxed in with their food choices, and therefore they don't want to be classified as that vegan statement here, Kevin. And if you look at since Q3 2021, almost a 30% decline in the benchmark of vegan, at least attesting to be vegans, to this in excess of 10% growth around the flexitarian. So what's happening here? Well, interest in vegan food has declined in 43 of the 47% markets, of the 47 markets that GWI review. And that surprised me immensely, Kevin. Fewer Europeans are also identifying as vegan or pescatarian, and a sign many maybe don't want to follow diets that are too prescriptive, instead becoming more flexitarian, with over 1 in 4 interested in reducing their meat consumption. And I think that in itself is a key health indicator. Studying the plant-based curious consumers suggests ways to give meat-free food more flavor. In the US, aspiring flexitarians are less status-driven, thriftier, and less likely to say eco-friendly food is more important than vegans, so plant-based items could benefit from fresh branding. Highlighting nutritional advantages is a good starting point for these brands, and this group really is more likely to be interested in high protein items and to be dieting to lose weight or improve fitness. And obviously you can attain high protein equivalent without needing to eat meat.
Yeah, I mean, it's really interesting, and I like the fact that they've even veganism is something that they kind of look at and measure, because it is showing that some of the changes that are experienced. And I've never been a vegan. I'm never going to be, but I'm glad that that someone's measuring it and kind of giving some kind of insight on it, because I think it sort of speaks to what brands should be doing and how they should be paying attention to what's out there.
And again, the closing point on that on this particular topic is what brands should be doing is just the truth around sustainability aspects and really understanding how to give genuine, real facts and figures around nutrition. Because the flexitarian proposition is people will migrate back to meat, but as I said, you can substitute it with other forms of protein. But it's all about the truth being told and giving potential vegans and flexitarians an avenue to go to get the right choice for the next stage of their dietary existence, put it that way.
Yeah. So, I mean, Craig, what else are we taking away from today's conversation? Is there more to this document? Because it keeps going.
So Kevin, at the end of the day, really, it's about identifying the key themes and what brands need to do is, I think, just be a bit more versatile and pragmatic. Both from consumers putting trust in not just the news, but trust in what the brands are saying. Particularly in this particular conversation we've had around, food types. What are the brands saying that consumers and hungry folk can lean in and take note of? Brands, position yourselves in a trustworthy way that folk can lean in and believe what you're doing and engage with your brand. At the same time, remember, the older folk, the boomers, over 50s, are a big target audience again. Whatever you're doing, find them on social media. That's a critical aspect to consider here. And just short form, not just around the sports highlight conversation that we had, but everything in short form really is an opportunity to get into the hands of consumers wherever you are at whatever time and space in your mind. Bring it along into short form, allow somebody to engage with it. It's easy to share. And at the end of the day, social engagement can actually turn you into an influencer as well. And these boomers are definitely taking note of that.
Absolutely. So, Craig, I mean, from a layman's perspective, in summary, like there's definitely a market that people should be tapping into and being aware of, and not brushing it off, kind of going, we only speak to a certain generation.
Yes.
There's actually there's a lot more potential for your brand in what it is you're putting out there and who you could market to.
And I think you made a really valid point that the comparison of the Gen Z and the baby boomer in the same household would be really interesting to go into further detail around the actual differences of consumption of brands and of the social media and how they're actually teaching and feeding into each other to communicate, help boomers communicate more effectively, but boomers actually helping young generation to make other life choices more effectively.
Absolutely. Craig, thank you so much. Thanks for giving us some insights on the boomers versus the Gen Zers. And guys, if you want to see more about that, the boomers are doing more scrolling and shopping, why they offer brands bang for their buck. I will share that link from the gwi.com and I'll share that link with you guys in the description box below. Craig.
I've lost you, Kevin.
Oh my goodness.
I lost contact with you for a short moment there. You mentioned somebody, maybe a Gen Zer.
Yes, so the QOT for today is don't try so hard to fit in, and certainly don't try so hard to be different. Just try hard to be you. And Zendaya was shared that with us. Guys, please remember to like, share, and tune in to the Lunchtime series every Wednesday and Thursday for more. From myself and Craig, have a fantastic week. Chat to you soon. Thanks, Craig.
Thank you, Kevin. Look forward to our next chat.
Thank you, Craig.
Pleasure.